Once there was a little girl who was playing outside in the park. She saw a fascinating caterpillar. She brought it home with her and she asked her mother if she could keep it. Her mother said, "Yes, you can keep it as long as you take very good care of it." The little girl said, "Absolutely." She ran and she got one of her mother's largest jars and she filled it with leaves and sticks for the caterpillar. And every day she would watch the caterpillar, fascinated by its every move. Until one day, the caterpillar began to act very strange. So she called her mother in, and her mother began to explain to her that the caterpillar was going through something called metamorphosis and building a cocoon so that it can then turn into a butterfly. The little girl was like, "Wow, oh my goodness, I can't wait to see this amazing butterfly." So days and weeks went by and she watched the caterpillar and she replenished the jar with food, she replenished it with sticks, and made sure she took very good care while the caterpillar was going through the metamorphosis, waiting very patiently. Until one day it began. It started. She saw a tiny hole on top of the cocoon and she began to see the caterpillar struggle. The caterpillar looked like it was having a very hard time getting out of the cocoon. It was poking its way all around, and it seemed to the little girl that the caterpillar was making no progress at all. So the little girl wanted to help. She went and got a pair of scissors, and she clipped the hole on top of the cocoon so it was bigger so that the butterfly can come out. Soon the butterfly emerged out of the cocoon, except something was wrong with it. The body was swollen and the wings were shriveled. The little girl was very confused. She thought for sure that it would get better, that the body would shrink and the wings would get bigger and everything would be okay. So she sat and she looked and she waited, but neither of that happened. You see, the butterfly spent the rest of its life like that, with the enlarged body, shriveled wings, and the butterfly never flew. The little girl struggled to understand why this happened, so her mother brought her to see a scientist who worked at a local college. And the scientist explained to the little girl that the caterpillar needed to struggle. The caterpillar needed to struggle to get out of the cocoon because it was that struggle that would then squeeze the liquid out of the body and into the wings so that the wings would expand and then the butterfly would be able to fly. Without the struggle, the butterfly would have never flown. And the girl's way of helping actually hurt the butterfly. In many ways, I am that butterfly that grew its wings because nobody helped me while I was struggling, and I'm also that little girl. I would say about 5 years ago, I made the decision to leave my corporate job of over 10 years. It got to the point where I could not stand to walk into that building another day. It was soul sucking. It got to the point where every night I would come home and I would have no energy left. I would have no energy for my children. I would have no energy to do anything other than wake up in the morning and go back. You see, when I started that job, I started at the bottom and I worked my way up to a high manager position. And At that time, a lot of things were changing within the company, and they decided to bring some new people in. And those new people, let's just say they weren't very kind at all. My way of doing things were no longer okay. My way of organizing or running the business was no longer okay. There was a lot of passive aggression, and it became somewhere that my soul was rejecting. And I just got up and I left. I didn't really have a solid plan, but I knew that I could not spend another day at that job and around those people who were horrible to me. So I began this journey of entrepreneurship or finding another job that I felt passionate about, and I turned to a lot of people in the community. Nobody was able to help me. I applied to a lot of other jobs. I got denial after denial after denial after denial, and I hit rock bottom. There were times where I couldn't pay my rent. There were times where I had to ask for money to buy food. I had completely went to a place where I was screaming and I felt like nobody could hear me. And that's when I decided to create my own job. I decided to create a job that only I could do. And through all the times where I was denied a job or denied a place at the table, that's what taught me to build a career and a job that was something that only I could do. Now, throughout my life, there were many struggles and many situations that caused me a lot of pain. I went through something that some would call the dark night of the soul, which is not just a night. It could last a month, it could last years, it could last decades. And only the person going through it can get themselves down to the tunnel to see the light and come out and become a butterfly. No one else is really able to get someone through what's called the dark night of the soul. I had my first child at the age of 16, and I had met a man who was much, much older than me and entered a physical and mental abusive relationship that lasted a very long time as well. During that time, that's when I realized how strong I was, because I made the decision to leave, and the things that were going on within our home, I never talked about, I never told anyone because I was embarrassed, and I was also young. And one day, out of nowhere, I can't even really describe where I got the strength to just pack up and leave with my children, but that's exactly what I did. And I can't say that all of my relationship problems have been fixed since then, but it has taught me to love myself first. It taught me what I want in a relationship, what I don't want, and it taught me that I'm enough, and that I'm more than enough, and that the relationship I choose to be in next is going to be one full of high standards and a common passion. Now, when I say that I'm also the girl in the story, because I have been through so many struggles and pains and trials and tribulations in my life, and I've overcame them pretty much on my own with no help, I also don't like to see my loved ones, family and friends struggle and go through these types of things in their lives, because I know how painful it is. And when you love someone, you also don't want to see them go through those things either. So there's been many times where I've been that friend who would take the fall for someone, or be there whenever somebody calls me, or, just kind of be the person that is always there to help someone through a situation and not allow them to learn the lessons that's needed to get themselves through that situation. So I have to learn that it's the struggle that made me who I am. And if I really loved and cared about the people in my life, I would allow them to go through what they need to do so that they can grow their full wings and become a butterfly and have the wisdom that I have right now. So I leave with you all tonight that at times when you're going through a very painful situation, it is that struggle, it is that pain, it is that change that you're resisting. It is that very thing that you're resisting that's going to allow you to grow your wings.